Good evening, everyone. So we meet again today on this Sunday, 21st of March, and we have with us a new guest today, Mrs. Jayashree Venkatraman. And I'll share a few things about her before we start talking to her straight away. And welcome, ma'am, to the show. Are you there?
Yes, I'm very much there. Namaste.
Namaste, ma'am. Welcome to the show. And for the viewers, let me just introduce Jayashree, ma'am. Mrs. Jayashree Venkatraman is presently working as a academic director to the SNBP World School, the Cambridge School in Pune. And she is a multifaceted personality, an education administrator, a teacher, a singer, a musician, an author, a quality management personnel, and a lot more. She has done her master's in English literature from Madurai Kamraj University, graduation in statistics, maths, and physics from MS University, B.Ed in English maths from Animala University. She has also completed her MBA from Symbiosis International University. She has done a certificate in guidance and counseling from Indira Gandhi National Open University. In her additional qualifications, she has a diploma in Hindustan music from MS University, Baroda. She has completed the lead assessors program on preparing schools for accreditation by QCI, and she's a resource person for CBSE. And a few things that I need to mention here as well is she has been the founder principal of DAV Public School Pune, which was affiliated to the CBSE curriculum and which grew to the strength of 6,500 students from class nursery to class 12th within a matter of 5 years of its formative growth. What an amazing journey. And that's not all. She was a radio artist in All India Radio Baroda. She has won many awards and accolades, out of which the Avantika Sarla Chopra Memorial Samman for invaluable and path-breaking contribution for promotion of social welfare and education happens to be one. She has got the Radhakrishnan Award for contribution in the field of education as well. The list is actually unending. And what I'll do is I'll share the entire thing in the message box, that is the description box below, so that you can go at your leisure through her amazing resume and get inspired from it. So once again, welcome, ma'am. And my first question to you is, did you ever think that you will become a principal of a school one day?
No. No, never. Incidentally, actually, I was born and raised in Baroda. It's a small town in Gujarat. And I wouldn't know what, but in our mohalla, we used to stay in mohallas. We didn't have gated communities those days. So it used to be a mohalla, and we used to have those business class Patels stay as members of our neighborhood. So there used to be this Nanu Bhai, Girish Bhai, all those members who used to actually tease me, madam, even when I went to school and came back, because possibly somewhere they saw the trace of me becoming a teacher, because possibly every time I got into explaining things so much that they said, "Tune to ek teacher hi banna hai." So that used to actually annoy me. But now when I reflect, I salute their insight and their sixth sense that made them feel that I would be a teacher one day. And I am very, very proud to be where I am. So that was it. But otherwise, I had never even thought initially. Yeah.
So when they were addressing you as madam, what age you were of that time?
I must have been less than 8, 9.
All right. Wonderful.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
this is in Baroda. Baroda, you are born and brought up in Baroda.
Right, that's right.
South Indian last name. So what is your roots? Where you actually basically belong to?
No, basically I belong to South, but I was born and raised in Baroda because my father worked in Sarabhai Chemicals then, and he had migrated. So that is it. So I take great pleasure in saying though I am from Gujarat, but not a Gujarati. So that is how it is.
All
Yeah.
right. So tell me something about your school, ma'am. A very, very, memorable incident probably, or a teacher who inspired you to become a teacher.
I think it was during the Teachers' Day. We, donned the teachers' robes and went around to different classes to teach. And there was this Talati sir, the headmaster then. This was in Baroda High School. So he was the one who actually said, I see a teacher in you. So that possibly also did sow a seed in me then that maybe I would actually land up becoming a teacher. Though to be honest with you, at that time, I must have been around 15. And it was not very encouraging because it was one of the most non-glamorous profession that you can think of. So that was how it was perceived then. But I'm so glad I'm here. So
So when you took up your first job as a teacher, what was the salary that you drove that time?
yeah, I got my first job. I think it must have been 1985. Yeah, 85. And I was offered 500 rupees salary.
Right.
And I had this uncanny ability to, writing, creative writing has been my strength always. And I was also pretty good at oratory skills. So this was one school which discovered this particular talent in me. So whenever it came to drafting of circulars or things like that, it was always Jayashree who did it. So that is how I realized that I had this ability, which was possibly better than quite a few of the others. So that is how it started. But my salary then was just 500 rupees.
500 rupees.
Yeah.
Uh, no, before you became a teacher, were there other professions that came to your mind as well? Like, being teacher might have been an initial career ambition when the child is not so matured or you have not been developed into a full-fledged, college pass out. So after graduating, did you ever think of doing something else than other than becoming a teacher? What were the career options?
At that time, actually, like you mentioned, I had contributed in radio also. Okay, Akashvani. So
Mhm.
I was about to be offered a job of a radio announcer.
Acha.
And so that was it. But unfortunate, I couldn't present myself for the interview then. So it was all basically, I think it's all providential that I couldn't go for an interview on that particular day. And then I suppose it just sealed my fate. So
So you have, been a part of the radio in what way? You announced something over there?
no, I used to sing. I used to sing. So this particular job that came by of a radio announcer was also kind of an extension to this because this particular radio announcer's job was to um, broadcast best of singers, introduce them, and talk about various ragas and things like that. So that suited my profile. So in a way, I would have been, but yeah, because I didn't go then, it never happened.
Okay, wonderful. Now, after becoming a teacher, you have been teaching, I guess, your subject is science or English because you have done graduation in both, right?
Yeah. English and maths has been my core strengths.
Mhm.
Um, I did post graduation in English, and I used to also be a maths teacher.
So both the subjects you used to handle in a single school, right? Same school.
Yes. So this was actually when I worked in Mumbai. When I got married, we shifted to Mumbai, and I worked in a school called General Education Academy. This was in Chembur.
Mhm.
Uh, there, incidentally, it used to be like my timetable would be the last timetable made because, the headmaster would fix in all the other members, the staff, and jo bhi kuch bacha hai, that goes to Jayashree's kitty. So that is how it was because I could manage a lot of subjects. So I could manage English, uh, maths, and also science. So I used to be given quite a lot of responsibilities in all the schools that I worked in.
Wonderful. So you have been, a multitasker in a way. You have been taking different classes. Now, tell me, like, were you like this from the very beginning, or you developed these skill sets in you? In what way you became a, multitasker in this way, that you can handle multiple subjects, you can do different jobs? What made you, anything from the childhood that comes to your mind might have been the reason?
See, basically, I think I was always a multitasker even as a child, because apart from going to school, I enrolled with all these programs that I did, like doing a diploma in music was along with my studies. So that went parallel. Then I was part of another program called Balvikas, where, basically I was into a lot of performing arts too. So I could write scripts for drama. I could dance, I could sing, I could do anything under the sun. And that is the feeling I always had, that I can manage a lot of things. And possibly that at times unnerves me, to be very honest, because it tires you, right? After some time, you start thinking, why am I doing got so many things which nobody expects me to do this? So, so it is pretty unnerving, and I do get frustrated that I wish I were not the way I am, because but then end of the day it is so fulfilling, because you are able to do so many things. And if I were to do only whatever is prescribed and expected of me to do, I would possibly be bored. So the kind of mundane routine is not something which is for me, I know for certain. I like a lot of excitement, and these are all things which excites me. So I'm happy in a way that I am, though at times with so many things coming on to your platter, it sometimes unnerves you. It makes you feel that you are not able to do justice. So there are some times, few times when you do get frustrated, but broadly I am happy.
So when are these, down times that you have in your lives, when you are not, doing very great in office, or slightly frustrated you're feeling, what you basically do to lift yourself up?
One is I realize that, one is of course self-awareness. Constantly reminding yourself that you are crafted differently and you are expected to do different things. And the beneficiary is a child there. He's waiting, he is expecting lots and lots from you. So I think that keeps me going, and I come back to my spirits. And I know for certain, ultimately it is for the child. And music definitely has played a very, very important role. And that was possibly one of the reasons why I found myself climbing the ladder of administration. Had it not been for music, it would not have happened, because it was when I was working for General Education Academy, the constant teaching exercise of 60, 65 students in each class um, kind of got me get some nodules in my throat. And I
Mhm.
wasn't to speak also, my voice had turned practically hoarse. A person on the other end of the phone would actually mistake it to be a male voice. It became
Okay.
that. So when I consulted doctors, the doctors were of the opinion that I should possibly quit my profession. But by then I was neck deep into this profession, so much so that I couldn't think of anything other than teaching. So I realized the only thing that I should then look for is an administrative job, which would enable me to even take up teaching as some part of it, not the whole thing. So that is how I looked for options, and then I joined DAV Public School in the capacity of a headmistress, and that was in Mumbai. Later, I was promoted to DAV Pune as a founder principal.
All right. So basically, a bad voice made you shift to the administrative domain. That's what you're telling.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes.
So that was a, a boon in disguise, in a way, that you got a hoarse voice.
That's it. In fact, there are times when I realize that God has packages it so differently, and
Mhm.
you don't know what is in store for you. So I think if you kind of keep flowing with the wind, it serves the best purpose, because his designs are beyond anyone's understanding.
True. Now, 1985, you started your journey, what you said, right? So from 1985 to 2021, what are the major shifts that you find in the educational sector? Not only as a teacher or as an administrator, but even in the lives of the students.
Students have changed drastically. I mean, in 85 and all, it was like uh, students were at the mercy of teachers. Unfortunate.
Mhm.
Yeah. In fact, the teachers would go to class, and it was purely dominated by a teacher in the class. Um, it was just, she was possibly the queen of the class. I mean, she continues to be so even today. But then it was like she was an authority. It was like she was so knowledgeable. Her content was absolute, and children had to just accept the way it was. But then I suppose, thanks to internet and awareness that came by, I suppose teachers slowly became facilitators, because they started realizing that they were not absolute custodians of knowledge. Children possibly knew much more than what a teacher knew. So I suppose the transition is what I have been witness to. And it has been a very beautiful journey. And where I'm concerned also, I think um, a principal chair, when I assumed the principal's chair, to be very honest, it humbled me. Because as a teacher, I would actually say, this is my class, this is my subject, these are my students, this is my paper, this is my answer paper. I mean, model answer paper. So it used to be like, I used to use the word my only too often. But when I assumed that chair of a principal, the my just was overtaken by ours, and it remained that. So I think a principal's chair, it is pretty overwhelming. And especially when you know so many parents have entrusted their child under your care, it is such an humbling experience. In fact, that's precisely what I often wonder as to how anyone can remain arrogant um, with parents, because they have entrusted their most precious child in our care. So even now, during these times when parents come, they kind of tell me that, yes, from 8 to 2:33, I never worried about my child. But it is now that that child is with me, and I know the effort that goes into making the child do what you make him do every day, each day. So I think that's so satisfying and so gratifying.
So do you feel like, the dependency of a parent on a school, which was way back then in 85, that has shifted or changed a little bit as well? Do you think parents are, more prone to take the command in their own hands, that what my child is going to do, I'm going to decide? The faith on the school in some way, it's not only I'm talking about your school, but across the country. Do you feel in some way the faith of the parents in schools has got reduced in a way?
I agree to a great extent, but I think it is okay, because ultimately, by parents' expectation, they are all educated parents. I think we also in 85, in late 90s, there were students of first generation learners. Okay, so they came from a very humble background. But now it is a different community of parents that we are handling. They are more educated than our teachers. They can find fault not only with the teachers, but with the books that are provided to them. And I think it is an evolving society. So I suppose we need to take it with a pinch of salt and not say that they are not respecting. It is not about respect. I think they definitely want to know what is right. And if we accept it, I think we are better off, rather than looking at it as a tug of war, where, uh, me versus a parent, me versus school. I think it never happens. I think it's together. And while, of course, where knowledge is concerned, I totally agree. These days, parents possibly are more knowledgeable, but when we talk about wisdom, I suppose that is where they lack. And sometimes we need to kind of tell them subtly that this is where the gap is, and they understand. So it's all about how we handle parents. So it's not about constantly saying that, and the day we start saying that, oh my God, yet another parent here. This is typically, I feel it is high time uh, principals become little more people's person and listening to every parent. I think one of the sessions I attended of yours, you also spoke about it. I think it's all about when a parent is irate, I'm sure there is so much reason for him to be irate. If I start empathizing with a parent, for all I know, I could actually tell him I would have reacted, I mean, more violently than he did. I could have
True.
been more aggressive. So I think it's all about understanding and being a little more empathetic. And these are the times when this kind of empathy is really going to make all the difference with the kind of recession that has hit the economy. It is very, very essential that we stand up and support the parent community as much as we expect them to support us.
True, very well said. That's something that I totally agree with. And I just wanted to, ask you about your perspective of the new system of education where the learner is in the command. So far, you started off by telling that the teacher was the queen of the classroom, right? Now, in a way, I feel the shift has happened from a teacher-centric learning to a student-centric learning. So, would you like to share your opinion on that?
Absolutely. I think this is the best thing that could have happened. I always wanted this to happen. Why is it that a teacher has to go behind a child and tell him, hello, you haven't understood one, two, three concepts. I need to brush that up for you. Or a parent running after a child and saying, let me know what you have understood. I think the onus of learning has to be with the child, with the student. Until the time that doesn't happen, I don't think we have achieved our mission. So I think it was high time that the shift happened, and I'm glad the national education policy talks more and more about it, but also kind of not only talks about it, also have paved the way to it, also to make it more interesting. And interestingly, I mean, I would definitely want to share with you, Dr. Datta, that this past 8 months of lockdown, I wouldn't know what I did with myself, but one thing I did, which I am very proud of, is I wrote textbooks for grade 1 and 2.
Wonderful.
So this is actually, I called it Ananda series.
Mhm.
And every textbook, like we have 4 volumes, and this 4 volumes has uh, English, EVS, maths, life skills, computers, music, art, craft, all that in one textbook. I have also included AI, artificial intelligence, as one of the chapters because it's very important for this child who's actually born with artificial intelligence to tell him how intelligence is different from human intelligence,
True.
because it's the generation which is actually having artificial intelligence surrounding him.
Mhm.
He needs to know if mama says, child, I know you are hungry. That is different from when Alexa says you must be hungry. Because
Absolutely.
Alexa is programmed to say that. And
Right.
mama is doing it because she's genuinely concerned. So children need to know that. I thought we should integrate that. And I have also included in this, I called it Pearl Stories because I thought pearls of wisdom, called it Pearl Stories. So it's all about life skills, how children should take care of themselves, how they should kind of behave, how they should react to a given situation. And this particular stories that I'm talking about is more in form of case studies. So they would get ample opportunity to discuss, and there is nothing right or wrong about anything. One student's reaction to a particular situation can be different. So by this, I think the acceptance that it's fine to have different opinions, as long as we know what we are doing. I mean, that is precisely what I thought would be the objective of this particular concept of Pearl stories. So that's also part of this particular textbook.
So this is one standalone textbook, or you're designing a series of that?
So these are actually 4 volumes for grade 1, 4 volumes for grade 2.
Okay, and it's complete in the lockdown, or
Yes,
it's
it is complete. It is actually just today I did the last proofreading.
okay.
Yeah.
And
So it's
you're publishing it yourself, or any publication you have found?
I got publisher GMAPS. So he is actually published it. So God willing, it should be well received by the students of grade 1 and 2.
And this is the apt time just before the national education policy gets implemented. A book
Yes.
of this type will be, very much welcome, I guess, by all the educators.
Yes. And actually being a part of, I mean, this is precisely what I thought would be a good tribute to my Karma Bhumi, that I designed this book, which is purely based on Maharashtra. Because, national education policy also talks about supporting the regional language. So while the medium of instruction remains English, there are a lot of concepts of Maharashtra which has been highlighted here. And when we talk about Maharashtrian diet, I have spoken about their poha being the best breakfast that they have, and how it is a balanced diet by itself, and things like that. So I'm sure
Wonderful.
love reading it and enjoy it.
So I know that you are a multilingual person. How many languages you know apart from English?
I know 5 languages apart from English. Yeah.
Which are these 5?
Yeah, Gujarati I know, Marathi I know, Hindi. Okay, I know a little bit of Malayalam. So that is it. Yeah.
Great. So you learned Marathi after you came to Maharashtra from Baroda, right? Or you had?
Yeah, to a great extent, but even Baroda, right? Actually, it is basically a cosmopolitan city. So I also stayed in a locality which was predominantly a Maharashtrian locality. So I had picked up Marathi even then. But of course, after coming to Pune, I am definitely much better at it.
Okay. Tell something about your family, ma'am.
Yeah, I have 2 sons. My younger son is an advocate, and he is working for a private law firm here in Pune. My elder one is an urban planner. He did it from IIT Roorkee, and he was working for the smart city project of Sholapur, and now he's joined ENY in Greater Noida. So that is it.
So what has been your role apart from being a mother? Were you a counselor to them as well? Because you are into guidance and counseling. I have seen that. So were you a counselor to your kids as well to help them decide their career, or they chose it all by themselves?
Actually, I allowed them to choose it by themselves. And in a way, I felt nice about the fact that they did not follow the mass in joining IT industry, both of them. Though at that time, it used to be every child went into IT stream. My children were slightly differently oriented. My eldest son, he always wanted to be an architect. So because he was very good at drawing, and he has amazing patience. So he, by default, took a call on becoming an architect and became an urban planner. I had slight confusion about my younger one. I thought he suited his personality, suited hospitality industry the best. But yeah, so initially what had happened is we had gone to a resort after his 10th standard, and he happened to interact with the manager there. And then he said, you need to be, working overtime when the rest of the world is celebrating festivals. So that was it, when he realized maybe this is not my choice. And then the thing that convinced me that he was not suited, he said it was a service industry, that was for certain, and you need to serve anyone, everyone. So he is very, very articulate and he speaks his mind. So he said, I will serve only those who deserve. So that was the time when I said, then maybe hospitality is not suited for you. So that was the time that we decided, because he was okay, he was considerably good academically. So he got into science stream. 2 years of science stream in 11th and 12th made him realize that he was not as technically uh, inclined as he ought to be if he were to become an engineer. And in one of the counseling sessions with an outsider, he said his mother was his role model. So that kind of conveyed that he would take up humanities. And that is when we thought that maybe he should take up law. And he luckily got admission in one of the premier institutes in Pune, the Indian Law School, ILS. And that is how he became a lawyer. And I think both of them are doing amazingly well in their careers and are enjoying it more than anything. And I think that is precisely what professions are, right? If you start looking at your profession as if you were on a vacation, you don't look for a vacation outside that time. So I'm glad whatever happened with my children. So they are actually cut out for their jobs.
And they stay away from you right now, or they stay with you right now?
My younger son, who is now working here in the law firm, he stays with me. My elder son is in Greater Noida now.
Greater Noida, okay. And you visit him at times?
Pardon me?
You visit him at times during this?
They come here, like he's married, my elder son is married.
Right.
So they visit us, we visit them. So that has been it. Yeah. And my husband has been a great pillar of strength to me, a great support, because all my educational pursuits have been after marriage. So he has been a great support.
What your husband does, ma'am?
He has just retired, but he has been an engineer and he worked in various MNCs.
All right.
Yeah,
I saw that you have added up qualifications later on. A lot of qualifications you added up even in the distance mode, right? So absolutely. This is one feature of your profile that I saw, that you continuously upskilled yourself, right? And from way back from 1985, when that was not a tech-savvy world, to today's Mrs. Jayashree Venkatraman, who conducts webinars on YouTube, and it reaches around 1 lakh people. How has been the shift? How you have enjoyed that journey from being, a not tech-savvy learner to today's Jayashree Venkatraman?
Yeah, agreed, absolutely. In fact, my tryst with technology was during my management times. Like I enrolled for the management program in Symbiosis, and it was it wasn't distant learning. It was like I had to go to regular class. It was from 7 to 11:30 in the night was my class, because it was an executive program.
All right.
Most of my classmates were highly techno-savvy, and here I was, one of those old teacher, chalk and talk teacher, who would want to take notes while the professor was, explaining. And he would time and again say, hello, I think I will be sending it on mail. You don't have to make notes. And I would find myself telling him, but I need it in hard copy, So that was it. And the kind of effort that went into it gave me sleepless nights then to make presentations, to work on Excel. It was tough. But then I suppose I realized that that was the way forward. And today I'm able to manage comfortably fine. I thank the skills that I got during my enrolling for management program. But though it was not intended, at that time I never thought that it would entail of learning of technology to that extent. But I'm so glad it was part of our learning.
Right. Now, as a principal today, what are the key focus area that you keep in your mind, back of your mind all the time, that this is what I'm going to do let's say, on a priority basis. So what are the few points you would like to share that these are the priority or focus areas as a principal?
Safety, security of my children remain on my priority list. The first thing. Uh, the happiness quotient of my children remain. Okay, nothing that would adversely affect the psyche of my child can get. It has actually a zero tolerance. Whether it is any teacher, anyone for that matter in the school,
Mhm.
nobody shouts in my school. So I ensure that as one of my primary focus. Academics definitely matters, but it comes by default. When all these things are taken care of, it happens. And I love to innovate. And every year at my school has been different. So even while I was at TAV, my school used to be called a school of experimentation. And today also it continues. So every year there are some new things that come by, and I like to experiment. So even now, I think taking forward from the Six Sigma yellow belt lesson, when you wanted us to do a survey, and that's precisely why I got delayed in submitting my project to you, because I was not just wanting to do a survey for the sake of it. Now the year has come to an end. I have an exhaustive survey that I have prepared, and
Mhm.
end of the survey, okay, every parent receives a certificate of being the best role model of the year 2021 for his child, because I felt this year has been so trying for every parent. A certificate of that kind going to every parent is going to make all the difference. And feedback, it can be good, bad, ugly. It is irrespective of that. Every
True.
parent should give it. So I am in the process of developing that now. So once it is done, I'll definitely share it with you, sir.
Wonderful idea. I think by listening to this piece of interview, many schools might decide to follow this, because I found this really innovative, that giving a certificate to each and every parent for being the best parent during this testing time is really something very, very innovative. Can you share a few more innovative things that you have implemented in different schools, which has given you immense satisfaction?
Yeah. So one is, of course, the book that 21-22 shall see, the Ananda series is going to be one of its kind.
Mhm.
And I have, like I said, I have added a chapter on artificial intelligence also. So I'm looking forward very excitedly to how children are going to receive this book. We have a concept of day one, day two timetable. Okay, like instead of a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday timetable, I call it a day one, day two, day three timetable. Suppose I start my school on a Monday. Monday is day one, Tuesday is day two. Suppose Wednesday is a holiday. The day three timetable gets carried forward to Thursday.
All right.
Happens is by default, the chain is not broken.
Mhm.
And there are times like when you prepare a timetable, ultimately it is also about ensuring minimum defects and the process related. So it is for that. So what happens is, suppose there are two periods of maths, and especially in the month of August, we have quite a few holidays that comes on consecutive days. So
True.
like Wednesday, suppose it is like Wednesday, two periods of maths a child has, and three consecutive Wednesdays go off in a holiday, then the child loses out on a 6 period maths class. And even if I want to kind of um, supplement it, the supplement will amount to just one or two extra periods that a teacher would ask me and would give. So that I realized doesn't solve the problem. So this day one, day two concept really works very well. The national education policy now talks about bagless days, but we have been having this concept of a bagless day for quite some time now. So it is a 6 day schedule, of which one day in a week, the child gets to come to school without bag. He just
All right.
gets his lunch box and the diary. Otherwise, rest of the periods, he would have different activities. So he gets practical. So one by cycle. So it is like a flex day could be day one for grade first, grade three may have it on a day three, fifth standard may have it on a day 5. So that is how, and that day what happens is, on that particular day, because children are engaged in different activities and it is a non-academic day for them, the academic meetings of for the teachers can be conducted on that day,
All right.
because these children are going to be occupied with different activities. And
Mhm.
considering the fact that our school is known to be an activity-based school, we have quite a few activities in the school that keep on happening. So this works very well. And so these are some innovations that have been initiated. And it has been very, very well received.
So if you have to pick up one contribution of yours which stands out from all other contributions, what would it be?
Okay. I had also prepared a school democracy book, a
Okay.
book on school democracy.
Mhm.
Okay, so what I do is, in fact, whenever we have we have these elections. I'm sure all the schools do that. So we
Mhm.
have these online elections that happen even otherwise, like not the virtual. In the real time, also we used to have online,
Right.
and the best, highest vote getter gets identified as the president and the prime minister. And
Mhm.
then I have, instead of a greenhouse captain, blue house captain, I call them chief minister, event management, chief minister, home affairs, chief minister, sanitation, okay,
Okay.
chief minister, CSR. So these are chief ministers who take care of various portfolios. So
Mhm.
by default, they know their portfolio and they contribute in that role. So this is again one initiative that has been taken, and this was way back. I think it must have been initiated in 2010, and I continue to do that. Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. I find that you have written quite a few short stories, like the Black Hole, the X Factor, the Invincible Adversary. These were all scripted by you. So,
Yeah.
can you share what exactly all these stories are all about and where we can find them if we want to go through it?
Yeah, yeah. They are I think they are movies actually shot in the school by the students.
Mhm.
And I had written those storylines for them, and we had children enact in them, because we find movies as such a great medium to
True.
influence. So I think the first movie was Black Hole that we tried on. It was on the black money. It came in wake of demonetization,
All
where
right.
at that time, so children were wondering as to why the government comes so heavily on this. So we made a short movie on explaining to the parent community and the student community that this was one of the major reasons why uh, this kind of economy had to be sealed. And so the government has come up with this. Then there was this movie, The Secret Adversary. It was on online thefts, robbery, threat that we have. So we
Mhm.
thought children need to be aware of an invisible foe there. Okay, when they kind of uh, are on online, when they are doing any transaction online, when they are online, and there could be somebody who is wanting to track them every time, and the ill effects of that. So we did a movie on that. And the last was, I think we did it it was year before last. This was on series AI stories. It was on small things which could happen in 2030 with AIs around. Like, when I order something online, uh,
Mhm.
the AI would already have conveyed it to the person who is receiving my order that I am a diabetic, I am a BP patient, and I'm not supposed to have 1, 2, 3, 4 food. And then the person at the other end says that I can just about send you only 1, 2, 3, 4 things, because you are not allowed to have those things which are uh, against your system to accept. So this was one. So short stories were written then, and we had so many children participating and acting in it.
So these are all on YouTube, or where is it?
They're all on YouTube. They're all on YouTube.
And you have your own YouTube channel as well, or is it a school channel that you have?
The school channel. School
A
channel.
school channel, okay. And
We
what
used
about this?
have, yeah. So we actually, even last year,
Hmm.
2 years back, we had this Shubhadra news channel
All right.
where children actually would describe as to what is happening in their school and what event is happening. And so it was as if there was a news bulletin where when celebrities came to school, whosoever came to the school, he was interviewed and
Mhm.
that interview feature. So overall, I think we did a lot of exercise of that kind too, to create a lot of excitement among the children.
Great. And what about this, the GPS uh, about global positioning script and the
Yeah.
counseling part?
Oh, yeah, that was last year. I realized quite a few parents, like what you asked me about my children, uh, they seem to be very lost. Children are lost as to what is the stream, what is a career that they need to take, and what are the options available to them. So it was about whether children know their own strengths, their own weaknesses. So, and then what all streams are available. So that was the book intended. The book was intended to drive home that. So it's just 100-page booklet which says your GPS. So where do you see yourself? Your global positioning script is
Mhm.
what I call it. A navigator to your true self.
Wonderful, wonderful. So now I'll have a few rapid fire questions asked to you, okay? So that will change a little bit the way that we are going. And then after the rapid fire is over, I'll go into something more serious in terms of your thought process about life and spirituality as well, which I want to explore. Well, this rapid fire round starts now. Uh, Storybooks or movies?
Storybooks,
Traveling or listening to music?
listening to music,
Teaching or administration?
teaching,
Amitabh Bachchan or Rajnikant?
Amitabh,
Right. Shakespeare or Tagore?
Shakespeare,
Ghazal or Khayal?
both
Both, okay. Maths or English?
English,
Lata Mangeshkar or Asha Bhosle?
Asha,
Pune or Baroda?
Pune.
All right, that was wonderful. So you answered all the questions in a flash without much thinking about it. So
Yeah.
now let me just ask you this related to the questions that I put in the rapid fire. What are the things that you basically do for recreation? Do you watch movies? Are you updated with all the recent releases that are happening? Or you do not watch movies much?
No, I watch movies with great relish. That
Mhm.
is for certain. But I love reading books. So if I were to given an option, then I would prefer reading books.
Now, don't you feel when you are yourself a voracious reader, do you explore the same reader in the children as well, or do you find the children have slowly taken a back seat as far as reading books is concerned? Do you find a
Yeah,
difference?
absolutely. I definitely don't see that kind of a passion in children. And but when I see a child like that, I remember there was one child who was actually reading a book sitting on the school staircase.
All right.
Uh, and I was so amazed and excited about it. I got the child's picture clicked and put it in various places that you can even read books while you are waiting for the bus to arrive or your parent to arrive. So I
Mhm.
mean that is the kind of engagement that I very strongly promote among children.
But what do you think is the cause behind this reading habit slowly getting away from the children? Is it like the digital media, or is it the absence of reading habits in the parents and the teachers as well, which they do not find a role model in front of their eyes? So, which
I
is the more important reason? Do you think?
I think the digital media. In fact, my own
Mhm.
children don't read as much.
Okay.
So yeah. And so I think we have to just accept it with a pinch of salt that but then they would slowly realize how beautiful a connect, a relation that you have with a book as compared to the digital media. So you wouldn't have that kind of a book. You have a sense of possession when you hold, for that matter. I mean, even a Kindle is good enough as long as you
Mhm.
are able to read it.
Right, absolutely. But this particular thing that you told, that the feeling that how how it feels like to hold a book, do you feel that the next generation, they're ever going to explore that again, or they're really going away from the books? What is your take on that?
No, I think we need to promote reading. We need to encourage our children. And as educationists, I mean, I would very, very strongly advocate it. Every teacher to should make effort, attempt to motivate and encourage children into reading habit. Though, yes, I'm not saying they should as much read because during our times, I think we had lesser distractions than what these children have. So
Mhm.
if the number of hours that I would engage in reading would be 3 hours, I expect this generation child should at least read for 1 hour. Okay, but at least that much reading is a must. Because there is so much of literature available, uh, not only in English, in all the languages, and we would not be able to do justice if we don't allow get these children addicted to this.
Absolutely. That's really a matter of concern, that how we can bring the children back to the reading habits that was very much there till even the 90s, I guess. But all of
Agree.
a sudden, with the advent of the television, things have shifted. Now, I would like to ask you this. Are you a spiritual person by nature? I'm not talking about religiousness, but spirituality as such.
I am. I'm very much religious. I am very much spiritual. Uh, I never enter my cabin without prayer uh, because I believe there is some power above which dictates, which guides. Like I said before, there was a time when I was feeling so miserable about losing my voice, which I held, which I treasured. And when I lost it, I didn't know whom to approach, where it would all lead to. But God had something else designed for me then. So I know for certain that we are practically nothing without uh, the supernatural power that is guiding us.
So, are there spiritual practices that you do on a regular basis, like meditation or pranayama or something like this?
Yes, I do meditate. I meditate, but more often than not, work is worship. And I don't visit temples.
Mhm.
It's not as a ritual. I go to temples, but not as a ritual. I don't follow rituals of that kind. But then I personally feel work is worship. Wherever, if you are able to um, contribute to the world, to the society, and every child there is a manifestation of the divine. And if I'm able to serve the child studying in my school, studying across the country, across the world, then I suppose I have served and I have done my bit.
So wonderfully said. When you look back at your life, are there changes that you want to make in it? If yes, what are the changes you would like to have? Or would you like to be the same way it has been?
No, I'm very happy the way the whole thing happened for me. And I don't think I would have wanted to bring about any change because I suppose everything, uh, it's all predestined, right? And a certain evolution is required. I mean, you need to undergo certain hardships, you need to undergo certain tribulations in life. Trials and tribulations are the way of making you evolved, right? I think that's
Absolutely.
how you get chiseled in life.
Mhm.
So I don't think life would have been better than what it is today.
Without being hammered, a stone doesn't become a statue. That's what you're telling, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, I have felt this, that all educationists are in a way revolutionary as well, because they have a vision. So, if I ask you right now that what is your vision about the world, and what are the things that you want to make a change, in the whole world right now? Are you happy with the way the world is operating, or you feel that no, I wanted it this way, and I have to do something to bring about that change as a revolutionary?
Yeah. So in fact, now that you are asking me, I'm reminded of one more initiative that I had taken. Like, most of our children, I wouldn't know about your place, but here people talk about being part of MUN, the Model United Nations Forum. Okay,
Mhm.
children are expected to get dressed formally, representing different countries and talking about the problems those countries have and the solutions. And they have a conference and they, present themselves with a lot of um, I mean, it's actually more of a hype created. Okay,
Right.
so when the students came to me and asked me about doing a MUN program in the school, I said instead of MUN, I think we should do Panchayat. Okay,
Okay.
and why MUN? Why should I talk about other countries? Why don't I talk about our country? Why
Mhm.
don't I talk about our city? Why don't I talk about our street? Okay, the lane that our school is located in. Am I able to bring about some change in the way traffic gets, organized, so that people know, they have that awareness, the traffic awareness, how to park their vehicles, how to remove without honking? Okay, so are there some things that we can do about it? Why do I want our children to talk about what's happening in Africa and Antarctica? Does it make sense to me? It all starts from where you are. And if you are able to make a difference in the school. So in the same connection, in fact, I have written to CBSE, okay,
Mhm.
about even the national education policy and the books that are being written and scripted. I wouldn't know. I think NCRT is doing it. But when I shared this thought with Subhash Garg sir, because I believe that he's part of the academic team there,
Right.
suggested to him that our book of civics need to look different.
The
Our
sim-
the civics book.
right.
In fact, more often than not, our civics books have started looking like books of political science.
Mhm.
It has absolute no relevance to a child's life.
True.
Why? We have a civics introduced from grade third onwards, where I explain to a child that I can't have comfort at somebody else's discomfort. It
True.
starts from that. I can't have a loud music on if there is somebody in my neighborhood who is unwell.
Absolutely.
I shouldn't be horning my vehicle so hard that it disturbs others driving. Okay, I can't use water so much because just because I have 24 by 7 water pouring into my house, I
Mhm.
need to be sensitive of those people who are not even able to get 1 hour water a day. So can I bring in that kind of a sensitivity and make it part of civics? Ultimately, it is about being civilian.
Absolutely. These are civic senses that people need to have, and which is very much found missing in majority of the people these days.
Absolutely. So I kind of have written to CBSE. I'm just
Mhm.
hoping, they incorporate this from grade third onwards. So maybe, if this is done, then I know that I could make some difference. That's it.
Great. How would you like Mrs. Jayashree Venkatraman to be remembered
As a teacher.
as teacher? Wonderful. And we have almost come to the end of the program. It's just 1 minute remaining. Is there a message that you would like to give to the students, to the teachers, and to the parents?
Yes, I think to the parents and teachers, I want to share that, especially teachers. Okay, I mean, teachers, at least I have seen in my journey that we teachers make very, very, what to say, hard taskmasters to our children.
Mhm.
We don't accept anything less than excellence from our own children. and we are too harsh on them. So I suppose it's unfair. Let our children also enjoy the childhood the way we enjoyed our childhood. Our parents were never so harsh with us, and they accepted us the way we were.
Mhm.
So just because we are teachers, we are role models to quite a few children in the school, doesn't mean that our child should be excellent in everything. And that's precisely what, and I think we bring in that only too heavily on our own children. And I think we do lots and lots of comparison. I
Right.
think when the national education policy also talks about lesser of this kind of race uh, on checking of excellence in performance of children in academics, I think we also need to come out of it and move out of just constantly contrasting उसका बच्चा मेरे बच्चे से बेहतर कैसे. I think that's not
Right.
fair.
Sort of a
Every
symbol that parents make it out to be.
Absolutely. I think every child is created to create a niche for himself, and we need to give him that space, that time, and I'm sure he shall make all of us proud. So I think we need to have that kind of a trust and faith in our own upbringing rather than becoming impatient about our children growing up very fast. Children grow up fast, and today, if you ask me, I wish I had spent a little more time when they were younger with them. Yeah,
Your kids.
absolutely.
Right. And any message for the children you want to give?
I think children, these days, children, they are already very, very smart. Uh, they are multitaskers. They need to be a little more happier uh, and feel grateful to their school, to their parents, to their teachers, not because they are good or bad. It is just that there has to be a sense of gratitude because there's so much that could have happened differently had your parents not been the way they are, your teachers not being the way they are, the school not being. So I think just have your heart filled with gratitude. That is it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And it was, lovely speaking to you. The 1 hour just flew past us.
Thank
And
you so much.
I really believe that you are really a celebrity in true sense because you have been spending so many years bringing up children, of different generations and, educating them in true points that you have shared today. I believe a lot of schools are going to take up those, ideas and implement them in their own schools. That will make the lives of children so much better. And personally, I would obviously pick up this idea of yours of issuing a certificate to every parent. That really struck me very, well in the brain. And let me just also tell the viewers that today I am known as a master trainer of CBSE, a resource person. But the first resource person that I got was Jayashree ma'am. I went all the way to Baroda, and that was a program on classroom management. And she was my master trainer in that first program that I attended. So
Thank you so much.
again, so it was
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So
And I would want to conduct a similar heart-to-heart conversation with you, sir, to know about your journey
absolutely, ma'am. We'll definitely do it.
for it, sir. Yeah.
So thank you so much, ma'am, for giving your valuable time. And it was really wonderful to speak to you. It has been a heart-to-heart discussion, and we explored all the different sides of you, which was apparently unknown to us. And I'm pretty sure that if your school children and parents watch this video, they will get a lot of inputs to design their lives well, and they will be definitely motivated. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste. Thank you.
Bye-bye.